Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's loud and clear, so clicker works, mic works, automation's off to a good start here. I know I'm right after lunch, so things might be slow, so humor me. Ask questions. If something does not make sense, challenge, right? It's a small forum. We can all have a good conversation. So I'll be talking about automation as a growth driver, especially as it applies to sales, marketing, business development, right? Why me? Well, I spent some time in marketing. My background, as you can see, started in the insurance business, dabbled at Leo Burnett, ran accounts for Philip Morris USA, and McDonald's, moved to Chicago Mercantile Exchange in Chicago, worked with our CMOs, worked with the chiefs commercial officers, and right now I head up digital transformation for Pritzker Private Capital, which is a private equity firm based out of Chicago and LA, focusing on mid-market firms, so anywhere from $500 million to $2 billion. So in my role, I work with a lot of folks like yourselves, right? I work with marketing folks, I work with sales, I work with business development folks, and allowing them to do more with less, right? And we'll talk about why that's important, but that's just my background. So I know the topic is automation, right? But I'll urge you to take a step back, and it fits in a wider overarching theme of digital transformation. And I had some lunchtime conversations, and I know everybody has heard of digital transformation. It's a buzzword, right? Let's be honest. Everybody can define it in many different ways, but it is important because we are all beset with all these challenges. I talked to somebody, they said the biggest pressing problem right now is hiring the right people, right? So shortage of workers. Competition is, everybody is competing. It's a dog-eat-dog world, right? So how do you compete and how do you win? The business environments have been challenging. The interest rates had a little cut, but again, they have been challenging, right? So we had high interest rates, then we supposed to have recession. We didn't have recession. We had inflation, and then we had soft landing. My head spins keeping track of all the things that are going on, right? But in all of this, one of the constant challenges that we face in our day-to-day jobs is doing more with less. Resources are tight, and how do you do that? You leverage digital, right? You transform processes. You modernize your thinking, and that's what digital transformation is. And we'll talk about the definition in just another slide here. And it's really important because it allows you to drive all these tangible benefits, cash flow, right? It allows you to drive growth. It allows you to cut costs. It allows you to reallocate costs. Let's just say that. So let's define it. For me, this is my definition. You can disagree, and I'll be okay with it. It's about using digital to create new or redefining existing processes to meet changing business environments, right, in short. And how do you do that? In my view, these are the 4 different pillars, and we'll focus a lot more on process automation, right? But these are the 4 pillars that I focus on when I'm talking to our portfolio companies and the marketing executives and the sales folks. What should we do? What is digital transformation? How can we transform? And having done a fair bit of this over my career, I try to break it down into these 4 things. Step 1 is being automating, right? Being efficient. If you're doing things manually, if you're doing things in a repetitive motion, if your folks are doing more of the, let's just say, data entry versus data analysis, that shouldn't be the case in today's day and age, right? Moving away from that, talking about data strategy. What do you do with data? Everybody has a strategy, right? But at the end of the day, it's more than a strategy. It's about how you implement it. Governance, garbage in, garbage out, right? So having a data strategy that allows you to not just look back, this is what happened. This is how many visitors came to a website, but looking forward. How do you bridge that gap? Easier said than done. Customer experience. Regardless of whether you're insurance, whether you're a small bank, big bank, brokerage, got to focus on the customer, right? Making the interaction smoother, better, faster, more engaging, and leading to conversion. Lastly, there are tools out there, right? So we often gravitate to this number 4. Let's buy a new tool, right? Salesforce. Let's buy a new CRM. I hear it all the time. And when I talk to my portfolio companies, they have a laundry list. So I want to buy X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, and what, right? What is going to change? Oh, lots of things. But at the end of the day, that's just another tool in the arsenal, and it's mostly usually status quo. So we'll focus a lot more on digitalization or process automation. I'll share some examples where we've seen success. I'll talk about the key themes that you could potentially take back with you and try to apply it in your day-to-day jobs. There's just another way of thinking about digital transformation, right? When we hear the word transformation, it's a big word. It's a scary word. It's a word that we associate with time and cost and people and challenges, a never-ending story, a saga, in fact. But there are things that you can do that drive value in the here and now, in the short term, right? So improving customer experience, sales operations, using automation to do all of those things, you can see that's where we want to be. We want to be high business value, low time to value. Revenue growth, generating sales, I'm assuming all of us, most of us, may have a longer sales cycle. So that's something that's out of our control. That's how the business is. But you can definitely try to minimize the cycle time there as well. Lastly, automation allows you with digital labor arbitrage. Why spend your dollars on doing low-value work when you can hire more analysts who can actually help you get to the next level, right? That's the business case that you ought to be thinking about as you go back. It's not about cutting costs. I try to dissuade people from that mindset. Automation, digital transformation is not about cutting costs. It's about reallocating costs. Where do you want to play, right? Lastly, and apologies for the font. I don't know how clear the white on yellow background is, but it's just about doing more with less. We're all challenged to do more, right? More brands, more content. How do we do more with less? A lot of our companies face that challenge. Some of our companies are smaller, as I said, $500 million to one, and some are bigger. They have more resources. They can throw more bodies, more dollars at a problem. Some can't. So how do you do more with less? That's where the big picture digital transformation comes in handy. So I know this is built as a case study, but we'll talk about a movie first, okay? And then we'll get to the real case study. Who amongst here has seen this movie, Shawshank Redemption? Okay, good, a fair number. I thought this might be dated, so okay. Good. I was actually going to place something with The Dark Knight Rises. I heard of a good story around it. But do you remember the scene where Andy gets a rock hammer and finally escapes to freedom, like chiseling his way, right? Why do I bring this up? It's because a lot of folks, it may be you, maybe your colleagues, maybe your teams, they are trapped in transactions. Let that resonate, right? Trapped in transactions, doing process work that doesn't really add value, entering data into CRM when a salesperson calls. I was at one of our portfolio companies, and they were talking about, well, we get this information, our salesperson gets this information, then we send the customer this form, the customer prints it out, sends it, fills it, sends it back, we print it out over here, we enter this in data and CRM. My mind boggled. I'm like, why? Why are we doing this, right? Forget about the work at your end. Why are you not streamlining the customer experience? Why are you sending them a form that they didn't download, send it back to you, you miss data, you call them, and the back and forth continues. And I asked them, show me the cycle time. A week goes by, why not make it easier? That's a transaction, and they are taking on extra work. They are taking on extra work. That time could be dedicated to more lead gen, more sales, more meaningful work, right? So this team here, they took a hammer of AI and automation. You can't go by without saying AI. Have all the sessions so far talked about AI, or am I the first one? Yes, we have. I knew it, okay. So AI and automation, before it was automation, but with AI, and I don't know what the experience has been, mine has been thus far, and looking at it from different perspective, from the PE lens, right? It has come up as an opportunity to drive productivity. We haven't really seen a corner case where it's meaningfully transforms, at least in the industries that we are all in, but it is a big productivity lever. So it gets, along with automation. AI and automation gives you that power, that rock hammer to escape from those transactions. So this team, they looked at the whole value stream, they redesigned the process, they said, we'll not do this back and forth business. We'll free up this Linda over here, we'll move her to sales. So they reorganize the team to be more efficient, right? And apart from saving on costs, they actually had another FTE worth of hours identified out of that whole process that they could now say, you know what? We almost have a new person that we just hired, a person that knows our business inside out as opposed to a new person. So now how do we leverage that? And more importantly, for all of us, they don't have to take work home. They don't have to go back wake up on a Saturday and finish some of the work that was pending because they freed themselves of the work that was meaningless. They just had to be done. So that was an example. But you guys are wondering, why is this guy talking about digital and we are marketing and this was built as a marketing summit? What are we doing here, right? So what's in it for me? The classic question. Do these challenges resonate with y'all? Like not having consistent data, siloed data that resides in different systems that doesn't paint a 360 view of the customer. Of course, you can buy a system and maybe down the road, 1 year down the road, you'll probably get a connected view of your customer. But from my vantage point, I've seen a lot of places where they collect data, it just doesn't talk to each other. Doing things multiple times, not responding fast enough to your customers or to your internal employees. Do these resonate? Show of hands? No? Yes? I see some nods. I see some hands. Okay. Well, if you don't raise your hand, then awesome. You are one lucky ducky. I've never seen a business that, at least that I work with, not have one of these issues, especially the last one, marketing sales disconnect. They seem to be operating in two different fields, right? How do you talk to each other? So the leads are being generated, at least examples that I'm going to share with you. And how do you qualify that lead faster? How do you get the salesperson on it faster? How do you close that lead faster? In some cases, it means millions of dollars, right? So while not a panacea for everything, automation can definitely help with some of these challenges. So now I come to the question, what's in it for me? Wifm, right? It has a big role in sales and marketing. I bring up the study, it's from Bain. You can see they looked at the entire front office of sales. And you can sort of connect dotted line to marketing as well. They identified up to 33% potential reduction in manual activities using automation. If you scale that, that's a lot of hours, that's a lot of FTEs that are now suddenly have other things to do, right? That can actually add effort where effort is required and not where you just have to do things, right? So just picking one, opportunity and pipeline management. It has to be done. It is required. But is it where your salespeople are the happiest? I don't think so. Nobody likes taking their notes and writing it back to a CRM so that somebody can keep track of what the leads are. Even in marketing, right? I mean, there's so much going on. How do you keep track of it? Like a chief of staff for sales or chief of staff for marketing. So what do we do here? I want to talk about these two things, work orchestration. So it was human before, and then human and systems. Now we're coming to a place where it's human, systems, AI, and automation. So human plus AI plus automation will be the way forward, right? Everywhere, that's the theme that I'm seeing. It's about, some of you may have gone to or might have heard online Dreamforce, right? Agentic, that's a new, agents word is everywhere this year now. So, but if you strip that back a little bit, what is that? That is agents that do one job really well and they work in conjunction with the humans, right? So we are moving towards that area. The other one is desktop automation. How do you help your folks be more efficient? So one of the examples I want to bring here is when somebody is on the phone with a customer, when somebody's answering customer queries, we actually did that at one of my previous firms. We provided each of our salespeople, our customer-facing people, with a little caddy. So if they had a question, they could they're on the phone with the customer, they can ask their caddy, and the caddy will go across multiple systems, get all the information while they're on the phone. So providing a much more holistic view of the customer and thereby more enriching conversation for the customer. Some examples, and you tell me if it resonates, but the idea is not to give you an exhaustive list. I could never do that. I don't know your businesses well enough, right? The goal is for you guys to see what are some common scenarios and then go back and say, that seems awfully similar to what this guy was talking about in Chicago, right? Marketing, customer information, connecting the data points, nurturing your leads, right? How do you follow up with your customers? How do you predict churn? Like once you had a customer, did they open up email? So what do you do after that? Do you escalate? Putting all of those things together. I'm not selling you tools. I'm not a vendor, right? But what I'm telling you, those things should not be taking human time. They should be done in an automated fashion. And maybe not today. Some companies are smaller. Maybe we won't have resources to do all of it, but just the mindset. That's the goal, right? How do we take out human from this process that can be automated? How do we leverage more automation? How do we leverage more AI? In sales, responding to RFPs, responding to questions, right? So one of the firms that in our portfolio, I was talking to their VP of innovation, reports into the CMO. It's like, we have all these questions coming in. We have all this knowledge spread across the different teams. We have to prepare this collateral all the time. And we have a couple of people that do this, and somebody goes on wake, we are stuck. So do you have a corpus of knowledge? What does that mean? Well, do you have your knowledge in one place, maybe SharePoint, what have you, right? Then why don't you train an automation agent or an AI agent, call it what you will, something that does things for you, to provide that information in the format that your customer requires based on your data, and lo and behold, you have freed up at least half of those two people. Because if all they're doing is collecting information that is distributed, so that's a mindset we have to talk about, right? How do we minimize that status quo and move towards more of a digital-first mindset? So just an example, your scenario, your situation, your business environment would be different. But I can vouch, this 20% of everything that's out there is manual in nature. Right? I've seen enough, and maybe not 100%, and that's not the goal. The goal is not to take out heads. The goal is not to reduce your headcount. Maybe that's your goal, but that shouldn't be the overarching goal. The overarching goal is how do we get our people more efficient? How do we get them to do more analytical value-added work? So after the movie talk, the real case study. So this is just an example, right? Again, as I said, your mileage may vary. This was for a sales code process. Minus this, in the initial process, the as-is process that I looked into with our sales leaders, everything was manual. They were getting information, they were scurrying around, and the salespeople were not hunting. I know the word is corny, but hunters, right? They want the sales folks to go and close deals, right? Not do paperwork. The salespeople don't want to do paperwork. That's why paperwork is always out of order, and not connected with what marketing wants. So we'll take out the conflict, put an AI/an automation bot or agent in the mix, and say, well, sales, you will have your notes. We'll transcribe it, we'll get it out, we'll synthesize it, we'll dump it here. Marketing will go into CRMs with marketing has a view of what happened. Everybody has a view of what happened. Doesn't require a human do that. So you don't have to dedicate, let's say, a junior marketing person or marketing associate to do this work. So that's what we did. We leverage automation, and then now we're trying to overlay, how could you not, unless you've been living under a rock, use ChatGPT to synthesize those insights and say, what are our customers asking for? What is a common theme here, right? Can we sell more? Do we have themes for new products in the customer feedback? This lead verification, I'll tell you a true story. This lead verification, leads would come in, and again, if you're B2C, it's different, but if you're B2B, and again, even in that case, it could be different. But if you're B2B and you have leads coming in, you rely on converting leads. Your website is a source for marketing. Wouldn't it be awesome if you could answer and close that lead and convert it quickly or qualify it at least quickly? In our example, one of the stores where we implemented this, it was sitting. It was just random stuff would come in, and somebody would have to actually read this information and allocate leads manually. It was split between sales and marketing because it was thankless. So putting all of this together, these are two examples where we took the existing infrastructure, existing systems, we just identified where's the human adding value versus not. And then those things could be, your perfect area for deploying some sort of automation and creating some value. Some examples of what I've seen where automation has really helped teams, marketing, sales, the commercial organization. Lead verification. Customer journey analytics is a good one, right? You have all those touch points with the customers. You have all the data that we collect. Your Google Analytics, right? Who came, what did they see? You can actually have user behavior being visualized. Then if you have them in your CRM, how do you tie them all together, right? Without making it a mathematical exercise that somebody's got to do, and it takes a week, and by the time you get it, it's outdated. That's a great example for doing it on a repeated basis, automating that whole thing. So you have daily reports that you can action that day, not a week later, because by the time it's already old. Updating customer information, we have this challenge all the time, right? People are moving, information is outdated, or you need to certify them if you're in a financial organization that mandates a lot of this compliance requirements. How do you do that? It is manual. And if you're not doing it manually, you already have it automated, kudos. It's awesome. But a lot of these things are manual in nature that you should look at. How do I get it out of my people's work plate? Competitor tracking. We use this to identify what our customers are talking about us, right? Monitoring Twitter feeds, monitoring news information, and it's providing a consolidated view of what is the sentiment for our business with our customers. Again, seems pretty difficult to do, but it really is not. There are APIs available that can get this data. You can assign a score, you can provide some initial logic and training, and then you can get a good everyday readout of what the world is saying about you and your business, and if you monitor your clients, your competitors. But I've talked about these point examples. I picked one example from sales, one example from marketing, but if you were to ask me, how do I start? I would say, look at the whole customer experience. Look from start to finish, right? Orchestration. That's step one. How do you get a more personalized, seamless experience for your customers? Secondly, how do you connect all the data so that you can segment them, right? Not making it a mathematical exercise or exercise that happens once in a while, but on an ongoing basis. So taking the labor out of it, making it seamless, that's the idea here. Then, of course, personalization is, I would say, table stakes, or maybe not, but it's really more common than before. I remember at Nielsen, when we talked about personalization, this was 2013, 14 timeframe, Nielsen Marketing Cloud. This was supposedly brand new then. It's table stakes 10 years later, right? But how do you use a personalized journey for your customers? So they come in, they interact, their chatbots are plenty now. And based on the conversation, you change your website, you change the customer experience. And lastly, this piece right here, I don't know if you guys have that, but when somebody calls, what happens? Somebody sends an email, what happens? That's a touch point with the customer. And that is just ground zero for any automation. If you were to start at one place, look at that aspect. How do you respond to customers, and how quickly and how fast and how enriching that content is when you respond to your customer? Because that should not take a lot of time. That is just very basic. You can either do chatbots, they're not custom, and these chatbots have come up by leaps and bounds. They're not the chatbots of when you had to program everything. Now they're based on AI. They respond to you like they know your business. They can actually suggest things. So as you walk out of this session, and some of you are local, some of you will go back, how do you add value? This is what I'll tell you. Take the easy wins. Don't go chasing a whale. Don't go after big, challenging projects. They fail. They're never as successful as you thought they will be. They never finish as quickly as you thought them to be. They'll always have change requests, and they'll always take more money. So take the easy wins. Find something simple. Start your journey, right? It's a journey. It's not a one-stop, hey, I did my digital transformation, we are done. No, it's not. And where do you find that easy win? You find a manual choke point that's stopping you. When I was sitting with some of you over lunch and afterwards, I said, what's your most pressing challenge? And if you tell me, hey, there's so much work I got to do, then you have to ask yourself, how do I take out some of this work and put it to a caddy, an AI caddy, an automation caddy? How do I do that so I free myself up to do more meaningful, challenging work? Because work will never stop. It's a never-ending cycle. Like there will never be a time when you'll say, oh, I have no work. And if you say that, the gods will strike you, and next day you will have 10 email from your boss on a Saturday morning say, I need this by Monday morning, right? So be careful. Don't say that. But how do you get away from that is by eliminating those manual choke points where you just are doing data entry, data processing, data analysis that can be done in an automated fashion. And your time is worth it, right? It's not that it's not worth it. Technology has become cheaper, and your time has become more expensive. So do the math, right? You want to offload the manual minutia to an automation agent, to an AI, to a bot, or what have you. Start small, but don't end small. That's what a lot of companies do. Oh, we did one thing and we can check the box. No, you didn't check the box. You just started. Build a roadmap. Do the next thing after that, right? It's a journey, as I said before. And that's what I counsel my companies. Let's not go. One of the guys that I really like working with, he's a big baseball guy. He says bunts and singles, right? I can't hit a home run every single time. Bunts and singles. Let's keep it moving. So in that measure, start small but scale rapidly. And lastly, you will not change the world, you will not change your organization, depending upon how hierarchical, how old your organization is. Last financial organization that I worked at was started in the 19th century. So it was an older organization, right? Things took a while to work their way through the system with everybody chiming in, getting multiple approvals. So you will not get your wins in the first quarter or the first 6 months. And that's okay. It's a journey, right? But educating them along the way, building that digital-first mindset. What would this process look like if you were not encumbered by the past of how it's been done? Because every time I go in and ask teams, why are you doing this way? Well, that's the way it's been done. That's how Linda did it, and she left and she gave me this playbook, and I'm doing it the same way. Well, maybe take a step back and say, well, in Linda's time, there was no ChatGPT, there was no AI, and she did the best with what she could, but now you have other means, and how do you do it better so that you're not trapped in the same transactions? So a digital-first mindset. And that's a great value lever, apart from unlimited dollars, unlimited time, which I reckon most of you will not have in your company, right? I mean, you have to have business cases for everything. I have to submit business case for everything I have to do. So there's nothing called unlimited dollars. There's nothing called unlimited time. So how do you make the most of what you have is digital. So there's some questions to ask yourself that may differ depending upon your own business situation, your own environment, your company, your competition, your industry. But ask yourself, how do I do more with less? How do I compete with faster competitors? Thank you very much. That's all I had. I think I'm on time as well. I'm happy to take questions. If you want to connect afterwards, that's my LinkedIn. But if anybody has questions, thoughts, comments, feedback, hopefully positive. Nope? All right. This is what you get to do as a chairperson. As a stunned silence, you have to step up.
When you present this, so I really liked the flow of your conversation and the thought process. So when you're presenting this to your clients, are they saying, okay, now what? Like, what do we do next? And then what is your, consultative advice on that?
So let me address it in two ways. A, they are not clients, they are my portfolio companies, but we have a very pull-based model, right? So at any time they can say, give me the Heisman and say, no, right? So sometimes they say, now what? So the first thing I ask them to do is, how would you design this process if you didn't have what you have today? What does good look like for you in your current scheme of things? What does your future state look like for you if you didn't have these challenges? And they go on this, mapping exercise, and this is what the process should be. Okay, let's figure out how do we bridge that gap, the delta. So putting that future state in front of them, having them design that, is really powerful for them, energizing for them, because they are in control of the destiny. I don't tell them this is how it should be, because they will not believe me, because I don't know anything about their business, just like I wouldn't know anything about your business. But what I do know is that, as I said, 20%, I'll put money on the table, 20% of what we do is manual, is being trapped in transactions. And we don't realize it because that's what we do, right? We come in, that's a job, but it doesn't have to be, is the point. Did that answer your question? Okay. Anyone else? All right, then. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the next presenter, and
Thank you.
safe travels back.
Thank you.